Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. The question, therefore, is the 4 ingredients of the Libyan destabilization and who provided them. The first ingredient, provided by the British, provided by MI6, provided by the Foreign Office with help from the Special Air Services, SAS. These are the monarchist tribes of Cyrenaica. Those tribes have been clients of the British for the best part of 100 years now. And those are the Harabi and the Obeidat. The Obeidat are a kind of a super elite, sort of in the middle of the Harabi. The main people in the Libyan Rebel Council, this so-called Jalil and Yunus and these people, they're all members of the Harabi tribe. It's not a national coalition in any sense. Half of them are kept secret because they're presumably members of Al-Qaeda or terrorists or maybe just criminals with Interpol warrants against them from God knows what. You notice this woman, Obeidi, the woman who claimed to have been raped in a hotel, or she came into a hotel and made the claim in front of the International Press Corps, of course. Her last name was Obeidi, and she was from Benghazi. So she is a representative of the Obeidat tribe. Now, my question is, was this Mademoiselle Obeidi a provocateur sent by Al-Qaeda for the purposes of giving Nick Robertson of CNN and the rest of the press whores in the hotel grist for their mill? Do we remember the case of the Kuwait incubator babies that was used to popularize the Iraq War among the little people who understand things only through individual stories? They don't like abstractions. They don't like generalizations. They only like real people, first-person accounts. Do we remember Jessica Lynch and her lying story that was used to popularize the war there in Iraq? Do we remember Pat Tillman and how his story was systematically falsified to make that more palatable and reusable for war propaganda? Even during the build-up to the invasion of Panama back in December of 1989, as I recall, Bush the Elder came up with a story that the wife of an American officer had been molested by Noriega's dignity brigades at a checkpoint in Panama City, and Bush went on television to say, if you're molesting an American woman, that's bad, that's really bad. All right, so we've seen this stuff. Even the story of Neda in Iran has been questioned now. You can see all sorts of interesting film clips on the Internet about how that Neda story, which was the delight of the international media for a couple of weeks, how that was apparently hoaxed up. And a matter of fact, if we go back to the original story, this Bouazizi in Tunisia, now this one I don't know, and I hasten to say I don't know, but people who have insight, especially Arabic readers in the audience, if you have any insights into Bouazizi, the vegetable vendor in southern Tunisia, who was alleged to have immolated himself, burned himself alive as a protest against the corruption that wouldn't let him sell his vegetables. Right? It's a heart-wrenching story, and I'm the first one to admit it. I'd like to know more about that one, quite frankly. He's alleged to have died of his burns in a hospital 3 weeks after the fact. I really wonder. This was actually written up in the Washington Post, Sunday, March 27th, the spark that invited a revolution, with interviews with the Bouazizi family in Tunisia, and just the fact that they stress this so much makes me wonder, what is it? These are terrible stories, heartrending, but they should not be used to build up the butcher's bill. And the butcher's bill, of course, is, we're hearing now from a Vatican envoy in Tripoli that at least 40 or 50 people have been killed. We have a very interesting letter from the Russian, Ukrainian, and Belarusian doctors, medical personnel in Libya. They're calling on Russia to get off the fence and come down hard against this imperialist aggression. And I think their sentiments are absolutely on track. But let's get back to the general analysis. That was a digression about Obeidi. 4 components. The first component provided by the British. These are the tribes that the British have, the Harabi and the Obeidat tribe. The second component comes from the CIA. That is the Salvation Front, the Libyan National Salvation Front, which has been operating for 20 years here in Northern Virginia, in the comfort of McLean and Vienna and these nice places in Northern Virginia. They've been living there for 20 years, and we now find that this was one of the main CIA front groups. This group actually is international. It was actually founded in Sudan. The CIA used it against General Nimeri of Sudan, and then they moved it into Libya across a common border. And we're told that the head of the Salvation Front is a guy called Hifter, Hifter, and that he's now going over there to become the military leader. I really wonder whether he's going to be the military leader. I always think that they're sending these people who are more or less presentable, who have been living in Northern Virginia, because they don't want you to know who the real military commander is. The real military commander is somebody who looks more like Hasidi. He's an Al-Qaeda fighter. He's a terrorist. He's a former Guantanamo Bay inmate or something like this. He's somebody with Interpol warrants out on him all over the place. But now, I make a special digression for readers of Nostradamus, right? If you've been watching the Nostradamus cult on the History Channel, you will know that one of the people that Nostradamus writes about, the Venetian agent that he was back in the period of the French Wars of Religion in the 1500s, he writes that the end of the world, I guess the Antichrist, is going to be associated with the coming of somebody called Hister, Hister. Wow, this is getting uncomfortably close. Instead of Hister, Hister, we've now got Hifter, Hifter. And if you remember, if you look at the older styles of typography, right, the Gothic S. If you look, you can look at the original Declaration of Independence, I guess, is incongruous, right? It's got these Gothic S's that look like F's at the end. So this Hifter, this is getting very close. And the question, therefore, is to readers of Nostradamus, right? You ought to put this out on the Twitter feed. Is Hifter of the Libyan National Salvation Front coming from Northern Virginia going to Libya? Is this the beginning of the end? Is this the beginning of the end time? And so forth. And again, I think you can find somewhere in my writings, I've got something about Nostradamus, Jean de Notre Dame, being a Venetian deployment during the provoking of the French Wars of Religion, 1560s, 1570s, 1580s. We'll talk about this another time. Okay, so the first component are the tribes, the Harabi and the Obeidat, delivered by the British that have been in cahoots with them for so many decades, for best part of 100 years. The second component, the Libyan National Salvation Front, that's the CIA's contribution, and the CIA makes a second contribution from them, but a third component of the rebellion is Al-Qaeda itself. Al-Qaeda, of course, created by the U.S. in Afghanistan, created, if we want to put somebody's name on it, created by Robert Gates, the current Secretary of Defense. When he was the deputy director of the CIA back in the early 1980s, he says he considered creating a CIA Arab Legion for Afghanistan. He claims he didn't do it, but I say that he did do it, and you can see it. It's Al-Qaeda. That's what it is. Al-Qaeda, the database for the CIA, with those components that we mentioned before. So that would be people like Hasidi. It's Libyan Islamic Fighting Group morphing into Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, AQIM, IM, and those are the two CIA components. And then the French, let's get the French into the act. The DGSE, the Direction Générale des Services Extérieurs. We know from, I believe now, the magazine Marianne and some other sources, Maghreb Confidential, that the French were able to lure to Paris a certain Mesmari, Mesmari, I believe. And this Mesmari, top honcho of the Gaddafi regime, was turned by the French. He was made to defect to the French intelligence services, and he brought with him a clique of military people, apparently centered in the Benghazi, Tobruk area. And this is the defections from the army that have gone on. And of course, we have to realize that the Western intelligence agencies have been all over Gaddafi for decades and decades, going back to the Shaler affair. That would be the story of Moussa Koussa, the foreign minister, who was apparently turned by MI6 decades ago. So he's been a British agent all this time, and now they pull his string, and he flees to London. Back in a minute on World Crisis Radio.